And I think with that, I will hand over to you two.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, anyone listening. This is my daughter, Millie. So I've got one friendly face. No, I've got a friendly face here. So, Adrian and I, some people do niche things, don't they? And it's really nice when you find somebody who does the same super niche thing as you. And so I was really shocked and amazed at HMN that there was somebody else who does this amazing, ludicrously niche thing called ultrarunning. And this is what everybody knows about ultrarunning. Forrest Gump from the classic movie of it. So I thought I'd start by just saying there was actually some ultrarunning before Forrest Gump, although he has done a great deal to get the sport going. And this is how it started. It goes all the way back to, well, if you're Scandinavian, you'd say it goes back to the sagas, the Icelandic sagas of people. But most people will say it goes back to the Greeks, and in particularly Pheidippides. And Pheidippides, 490 BC, you've got the Greeks being attacked by the Persians, and you have all that, Sparta and 300, if you like a bloodthirsty movie or something like that. Anyway, in the middle of that, the Persians had come over into Greece and were attacking, and Athens desperately needed help. So they sent their best runner. And in those days you had these warrior runner messengers, of which Pheidippides, and he's recorded quite close. It's pretty clear that he probably did exist actually. So Pheidippides ran from Athens to Sparta. They say he did it he left one day and he arrived the next day. So he ran 246k overnight. And on the way he met the god Pan, and there's some other stories which is and there's loads of poetry about it, it's great. So, and then he ran back again, because the Spartan says, yes, we'll come, but we can't come yet, because we're busy with something we have to clean or something. So that's the history of Pheidippides, but nobody remembers that, because then Pheidippides, the war actually happened, and the war happened in Marathon. And that's where the Athenians fought against the Persians, and they won, amazingly, against a much bigger army, huge Hollywood blockbuster movie. And then Pheidippides, or not, but anyway, Pheidippides ran back from Marathon to Athens, which is about 40k, give or take, and famously he said, Nikome, and when he arrived in Athens, which means we win, kind of in a positive way, and then he fell down dead. That's the story of it. And that's how also the link to Nike shoes, which is why I run marathons in Nike shoes as well. So somehow everybody got motivated by the marathon, and everybody forgot about the ultra thing he said. And so cue forward many, many years to 1896, the Athens Olympics, which is the first modern Olympics. They then decided to do a marathon. Now, the marathon wasn't in the original Olympics at all. They were mostly focused on the 200 metres odd, which is the stadia, which is where we get the word stadium from. Instead, but in this they had this guy, Snowdon Louis, a Greek guy who was a water carrier, and he ran from Marathon to Athens, 40 kilometres or so, and he won the Olympic medal in just less than 3 hours. Pretty good. And he's quite a character. And then the world got really obsessed by this. They thought it was amazing about this marathon. And so they, the next year in Boston, the Boston Running Club had the Boston Marathon. And after that, marathons just went wild, and, over the years. So now, 10 people finished the first Boston Marathon. Now it's 40,000 a year and for the other one. So Boston marathons just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. While ultras got kind of left behind. And many years later, they started just kind of peeking around. So South Africans, we lovely to have the South Africans, they were really the first to have a modern one. They had Comrades, which is 90 kilometres. It's a way of life. If you do a marathon in South Africa, people say, oh, are you training for Comrades? And it's been going every year since 1920. Get 20,000 people plus every year run it, and I like to do it. In this country, it went from fell running, And so in 1932, a guy called Bob Graham, who's a hotel, ran around all the peaks in the Lake District, 106k. Then the Pennine Way started, and that in 1965 and turned into a race to 1430. And these other ones up. Then the last one is the UTMB, which is now the World Championship kind of ultra running, which runs across around and Mont Blanc. So it's 171k. So that is ultra. A little history, a little boring history of that. So I'm going to ask Adrian now. How did you get into, not ultra running stuff, but to running? What was your journey into this thing?
I think as a kid, I was always very, very hyperactive. You know, I always had to do something. And I always had this kind of urge of moving forward. So I was very athletic, and apparently I was very good at it also. So from a very young age, I was competing quite internationally, and I was mainly focusing on 3 different things. So running, mainly orienteering, because I love nature, I just love going out. And some people in this room know that I'm notoriously bad with navigation. So I think around 10, 11, 12 is when I did my first ultra. And basically did orienteering, got lost in the forest, and I think most people probably would have stopped and tried to find a way home. I didn't, I just kept going, you know. And then I was found somewhere in the forest, and I had done 50 odd K, and it was like 10, 11, 12.
That's a bit young to start.
I also did gymnastics, and I did actually do ballet. So I was a professional ballet dancer. And unfortunately, it came that time where, you know, I had to choose what I wanted to do, and I chose ballet. So that was my kind of career from a very young age. Traveled around the world. I did Louise Bourgeois, Jean de France, you know, and I've done so many swan legs that I can't even look at that. Unfortunately, I was around 17, 18. I was back in Sweden. I was going to go perform in Uppsala, this small town, and was in a car accident. So long story short, paralyzed for a couple of months in hospital. Didn't know if I ever was going to walk again, and I was very, very lucky with that. The nerves kind of reconnected, and here I am. And that's kind of how I got into running and ultra running. So, yeah. And you, James, ultra running.
Yeah. So I used to play football, and then the defenders got quicker than me, so I gave up and started running. And a friend of mine was doing a marathon. So, you know, you do the classic thing, you do a 5K, and you do what you do after 5K. Oh, you do a 10K, and after 10K. You do a half marathon, and then after half marathon, you do a marathon. So I did London Marathon in 1998, and then what do you do after that? Well, you try and run a marathon faster, or you go abroad. So 2002, I ran New York Marathon, which was good fun. Great place to wait to see. We had a couple of weeks holiday in the middle of it, ran the marathon. And then the next year, I got a place in London. So I ran New York in November and London in April. And by the end of that, I got the time I wanted, hooray, PB. And then I hated running. So I threw my shoes in the corner, didn't run for 6 or 7 years. Got busy at work, got very, very unfit and fat and things. And then I moved house, and a couple of friends said, "Hey James, come on, why not? You're fit, you run, you've done marathons, why not come and do this thing in the Lake District?" And I like the Lake District. So I went up to the Lake District with 2 friends for something called the 10 Peaks, which was this. So there's me. Oh, there's me, 2011. And it was total silence of the lambs, the innocent to the slaughter. Trying to do 70k and 10 highest peaks in the Lake District, which is kind of classic place I've got. And I just completely self-destructed. It got slower and slower, and didn't have poles, didn't have the right kit. My torch went out, I ran out of water, ended up falling off a small cliff in the middle of the night. And it was, like you do, you know. And it was supposed to be a 24-hour race, but they weren't sweeping the course, so they didn't really know what they were doing there. So I have a record for the slowest ever person to finish it. this race in 30 hours and stumbled in that. So that, and believe it or not, after that, I actually thought, I've got to do this again. So that was my first ultra run, and even though it was absolute abject failure, I loved it.
But that's part of it, though. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that there's so many different types of runners. I mean, you have the road runners, you have the trail runners, you have the ones that love elevation, the ones that like short speed, you know, the long jump and all this stuff. So and I think it's interesting to come from marathon and then doing this.
Yeah.
It's basically, yeah, self-fulfilled. But it's never a failure, that's what I say.
Yeah. So, tell me, what's your favourite? What's your favourite? You've done loads. Adrian has done lots, so many ultras, far more than I have. So what's your favourite?
Okay, so I do love running. So I've been doing it for quite a long time. So I do most of the things that I do is what we call unsupported. So basically, there's a race. I go there and I do it completely alone, no support. Because I've never really been into the whole competitive of the race. I kind of really enjoy the process of it. But my all-time favorite, it's called TransVulcania. So this is an awesome, well, it's quite short, it's just 75k, just 4,000 elevation, you know. But hopefully this picture is going to kind of explain why this one is so important to me. Because you start at night, and literally, you start at night, and then when you go off, you just see this trail of people just kind of slowly making its move up to the, an active volcano. Just already had actually lava just last year, wasn't it? And by the time you actually reach the summit, as you can see, you're above the clouds, and that's when the sun comes out. Without being too emotional, it's the feeling, I can't explain it. It's just spiritual, and I just remember, I just stopped. Yeah, I just couldn't. This amazing, beautiful. It's probably like one of the most special moments in my life. And this girl here, Killer Allen, she's a very dear friend. She is what we call a mountain girl. She does lots of, which is kind of what I want to do next. It's what we call ridge. That's like when you go into higher and you run like on a little ridge like that. It's very dangerous, but just, yeah. And she actually have a book. If you ever want to read it, it's absolutely amazing. It's called Out and Back, because on one of the races we did together, she actually fell. Something like 400 meters, broke pretty much every single bone in her body. And the book is all about her kind of being broken and then just kind of putting herself back together. And she's still an elite runner. It's amazing. So it's kind of my inspiration and my favorite run. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So James, kit.
Yeah,
I think we talk a lot about the race. People see the races, but there's so much behind it in terms of training, the time, the kits. Maybe.
So the thing you want to do is just be out there running with nothing. You know, you just want to run in this countryside that no one will see, and it's stunning and beautiful. But you've got to have the right kit, otherwise, you know, you see examples of people who don't, and they're really in trouble. So this was for a race I did last April called, it's a route called Coast to Coast in the north of England. It's a 5-day race. And so this is all the stuff I took with me, and that goes into a bag which is in your tent, so overnight, and then you have a drop bag for the middle of the day to replenish. And then this is what I'm carrying. So this is like less than 3 kilograms, which is as light as you possibly can, because you want to be, well, and when we say running, you start off by running quite a lot of it. The further it goes on, you run less and you walk a lot more. So in here I've got, and you've got to prepare for anything. On this race we had glorious sunshine, you had clouds, you had, you know, driving rain, there's snow as well. And so you've got to have, you know, lots of things like wonderful jacket, multiple shoes to change into, waterproof socks, poles, a race, thing like that. So it's a great way of spending money, and all you need is a pair of shoes. And then there's food, so this race is, I like my Strava, it's my favourite Strava record. So it's, you start here and you finish here, it's easy, and it's 310k. So that included getting horrendously lost on the second day, because I followed my watch, but I followed it the wrong way. Which is a bad thing to do. But you need the food to keep going. So you've got kind of like stops in the way, but you also have what you have. Now every ultra runner develops, what's kind of weird is after you've gone for like 5-6 hours, it's really hard to get your stomach to eat food. And it's hard to tell what you'll want to eat and what you won't want to eat. So everyone's got their favourites and everyone is really weird. But this is mine, so I have really good chocolate, not cheap chocolate, good chocolate. Biltong, sorry me, sorry vegetarians. I have honey roasted cashew nuts, because they always taste good, These, which are lucho delitos, which are South American agar gel, which are wrapped in a banana leaf, which are good. A thing to add into your water. I find this really hard. The only gel I like is a Morton gel. And just like Pheidippides, he fueled himself some dried figs, so I eat fig biscuits, large quantities of fig biscuits for it as well. So I have that, so those are the kind of things. And the other thing to get ready is we talk a lot about two things, kilometres and elevation. And for the months building up to it, so Adrian's got a big race coming up, and I've got one coming up as well, and we have a little competition going on, which Adrian's smashing me on about how many kilometres have you run this week. And and you also want how much elevation you've done in that as well. So that's a bit. So that's sort of the kit.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Interesting. I'm completely the opposite. So as an ultra runner, so when I go out on this 100k or 80 or 90 races, I do what I call fasted runs. So I actually condition my body to endure for a very, very long time without food or water. Basically, what that means is that you can you take the energy from your body rather than from carbohydrates. It's a whole different system. I really believe in that personally because it means that I'm less likely to bone or all of this stuff. So I tend to normally just kind of a little bit of watermelon, lots of hydration,
Cool.
That's kind of my
That's tough. All right, so what's your worst? Tell us your worst experience.
Ooh, yeah. Worst experience. Quite recently, I was in Scotland, and Kingle, did a 50k race. The day started beautiful. There was perfect conditions, warm sun. Just perfect. Like not warm, but not too cold. Just perfect. Kind of halfway through, I think it was 35 something k in, literally like that. It was raining so heavily, the temperatures dropped instantly. I couldn't literally, this is how far I could see. I was on this ridge and I quite a substantial drop and a quite substantial drop like that. And I literally were thinking, that's it, I'm gonna die, So I kind of, panic mode, just kind of like dropped down and also just kind of creeping backwards, trying to find so what you have to do is that you have to find a little spot where you can just kind of curl up, and there's something called like an emergency bivvy. It's like the back, literally, but it retains the heat, the body's heat, so you survive for as long as possible. So I was kind of hiding out in that one until about a couple of hours. Obviously, the way got better, just perfect, and I was like, okay, should I continue like you do? Decided to, I'm going to turn around. Came back to the hotel to find out 3 people had died. Yeah. In a fortnight, 2 weekends, 6 people died. So this is really back again to preparation. When I go out on these runs, I see people climbing a mountain in flip-flops. I'm just thinking, what are you doing? It's the most crazy thing, But it's real, because, things happen. Yeah, so that's kind of my worst experience. Another one?
Yeah, go for it.
I did a 200k ultra, so I ran from London down to Brighton, Brighton back to London, unsupported again. Felt great, I was so strong, felt so great, I would just keep going. On the way back, Croydon, I actually, at this time, I had no idea in what a state I was hallucinating. For a couple of hours, I had no water, no food. What a normal person probably would have done is said, like, please help, you know, or call 911. You know, in my state of mind, I just decided to push on, you know. But what was so scary with that time is that I was actually properly hallucinating. I actually saw things and just like, but I knew it wasn't real, so it's just a really scary experience. But all good in the end, and I got like a beautiful medal, what we call bling, specially made for me by the company. Yeah, so, but yeah, those are kind of my two worst experiences.
Nice.
Yeah. So
sorry. Well, I'll tell you some nice things, okay? So why I like it. Yeah. So I won't share that stuff. So I'll talk about some nice stuff. So I like this. This is I have this memory fix. This was about 5 years ago. It's Dartmoor, and Dartmoor, if you've never been, it's just like this endless flat land with this huge sky in the southwest. And it just goes on, and a friend and I were doing this race called Coast to Coast across Devon, Dartmoor and Exmoor together. And it's just like, that's me, my friend took it, I didn't, you know, and I'm just running across this vast landscape, you know, and it's huge, and you're like a speck. And I think ultra running gives you respect and helps you to see country and the nature and the world in a way that you just wouldn't do in any other way. And you travel in these distances, but they're so big, and you just kind of make your way so slowly across this land, and it's just really, really special. So there's that. That's a really special memory for me. And then occasionally you come across these beautiful spots you just wouldn't expect. So this was on the Dragon's Back's a race down the length of Wales, a 5-day race, and here it's a race I really wanted to do. It's quite it's a beautiful thing. And suddenly, after 4 days, I came across this kind of field, this sea of bluebells in front of me. And it was just such a surprise, and such an exquisite, such an unlikely thing to do. And it just went on and on and on in this valley forever. And it was just beautiful. So there's that. The argument that we use for it is it's really good for your health, guys. It is. So this was my blood. I had my blood sugar tested. I advise everyone do their annual vitality checkup. So I had mine done. I did the at-home test, but it failed. It was okay for the cholesterol, but the blood sugar. So I had mine done this morning, and that 5.1 is a good result, especially. So that's my health, and you know, one way of keeping your health good, as long as you don't fall off mountains. What's
the main question we get asked about running?
Oh, thank you. Yes, yeah. So people say, "Oh, why do you do that? It's really bad for you. It's bad for your joints and your knees and your hips," which statistically it's not. They say, what else do they say? They say, that you have a heart attacks. Yeah. You know that you end up having, which statistically you don't. Although it's a very narrow little band. I would recommend people get their hearts checked out if they're over 50. Yeah. So health generally is really good to do ultras. Do kind of be properly prepared.
It is actually quite, or has been quite male-dominated.
Yeah.
Predominantly white males. So it's really interesting now is that you see more and more women and also ethnic minorities, which is a great thing. You know, because obviously as a community, it's just becoming more and more popular, I think, especially after lockdown. I notice more people just kind of pushing the boundaries. So,
and for women, many women are winning outright. Many of the most famous ultras, like the Spine, was run outright by a woman. You know, so that's, come on, more women to do it, but there's various medical people, I don't know how you call them actually, who think that women should be stronger at ultra running when it's long, when it's sort of multi-day than men. Partly because they're better at coping with pain than men are. So the other thing is fertility, you know. So this was Adrian, me, and my dog Darwin, the beagle. She runs all day forever, and this was out on the North Downs a couple of weeks ago.
North Downs and Boxhill. So kind of did like one of my kind of elevation routes, and where you see a lot of runners that are doing this big UTMB races, and so if you want to go and see ultra runners, go there and have a look, because every Saturday they're all dressed, because now we're starting the season, so you start doing dress rehearsals, you actually wear everything, and you're up and down, up and down, up and down, and people look at you like you're absolutely insane, you know, so it's kind of wild, you know. But yeah, I think that was quite funny.
That was a great day.
Yeah.
That was a great day. Adrian drove me into the ground by the end of it.
Nearly killed you all.
And Darwin, it was the first time I've ever seen her tired and happy to kind of come back to the car and go home. So it was good. And I'll finish with this photo, which is, this is the last day of the Dragon's Back. So my people, so I'm Thomas. So I'm my father's from Abergavenny, which is in southern Wales. Big up to Paul Jones, he's just finished the, he's North Wales. Anyway, so this is South Wales, and this is the Black Mountain. So this is my family are from the foot of this, and this is the last mountain that you do on this 5-day race. And you can see the little specks going up it into the distance, and they're wild horses on this mountain, which are just amazing. And this was a very emotional moment for me. I felt like I'd done this 4 days. I was right on the edge of whether I could do this or not, and I'd come in, and I knew at this point I was going to make it. I was going to make the very strict checkpoints at these things, and I was going to make it, and I was going to finish this race. And they give you this one. They give you a little dragon. So this is my dragon. It's called Smorg. And you have the dragon to finish the race. So it's not very big, blingy.
It's actually a friend of mine who he was actually the last one in. It was really interesting that the last person in, because this race is brutal and the cutoff is brutal. Even if you're like 1 second past the each station, you're out. And literally he just narrowly about half a second, but they actually get the biggest.
Yeah, and everybody comes out for the last runner because they've been working hardest. They're the people who've been on their legs for a lot longer than anyone else. So everybody comes out and cheers the last runner that comes in under the chuckle, and they get the biggest trophy of all, which is a nice thing. And the winners will come out, stay around for them as well. So, what's next?
So I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm going to be doing. So for me, Ultra Trail Snowdonia. So it's by UTMB. It's one of the races, and it's the only mountain race here in the UK, and it's also the first one of its part of the UTMB World Series. It's just a couple of park runs, 107k, nearly 10,000 elevation, Snowdon twice, Penny Pass a couple of times. You know, so it's literally just going to run like that. So I really look forward to that. Like James, that's the big one. And there's a couple of other ones I'm kind of like toying with, a little bit more extreme. You know, but we'll see. But that for me is going to be the next big one.
Cool.
And you?
So I'm actually gonna. There's 3 things that you need to do for ultras. You know, you need to be fit. You need to get your body into the distance. You need to, and that's the difficulty because I'm starting to wear down a little bit. My physio said, James, you should probably ease off on the ultras. Probably, she knows I want to do a couple more, so there's a couple more that I want to do. The other thing is kind of food, which we talked about, and the kit. And the other one is the kind of emotional engagement. You don't do a race unless you really, really want it. So there's 2 that I really want to do, which are left, which is this one I'm doing in June. So this is running from Sheffield to Scotland. It's called the Pennine Way, or the race version is called the Spine. So I'm doing the summer version, which is the easy version.
There's a winter version.
Yeah, there's a winter version, but I don't like cold, and I like the view, so I'm going to do the summer version this June. So I bet if I get my margin. And then the last one I'll do is the oldest and the greatest, the biggest, which is the Comrades, which is in South Africa. So that's from Pietermaritzburg to Durban, or the other way around. They alternate year to year on it. So in a year or 2, I'll probably do that as well. And then I'm going to hang out my boots. I'm going to finish doing marathons as well, and I'll just do Wednesday yoga and a few other things I want to do as well.
But you do a lot of biking also.
Yeah, a little bit more biking. You know, this is what going off on the cycle to Mythen does for you. I'm never going to do the cycle to Mythen again, but praise to the people who do it. But I do like cycling more, and there's a few other. I won't stop running, but slightly shorter distances.
So you're going to be biking Box Hill and I'm going to be biking.
Yeah, we'll meet. We'll meet at the calf. Yeah.
We're still going to, do things together.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. If you have any questions, we would love to hear those. If you want to start, we can recommend. In fact, you can come and join me on the spine. There's still a few places left. Yeah.
If you want to come running with me, I'm pretty much every day on lunch. So it doesn't matter if you're fast or slow, because I'm out there all the time. Companionship. Feel free to come.
Yeah. The great thing about ultrarunners is we don't care how fast we run, because all we care about is doing the miles. So we'll run with anybody, just to put our mileage.